Hi guys, welcome to the channel. So this video is about the build of Warlord, which is the class combination of the new class of Oathkeeper and a soldier. So the first idea of this build is going to be something really tanky, something similar to the water build, and but with the internal trauma and physical damage as a primary output, as a primary damage output. So look at the class of the Oathkeeper. So the primary skill I'm going to use is the Righteous Fervor, which is something, it's like the fire and internal trauma version of the savagery from the shaman class, with a bit of a boost of attack speed and defensive abilities, and with internal trauma damage and fire damage as well. I'm also going to use Various Might as the something along the line with similar to Blaze, but I'm going to use this one because it's new and something I assume going to be more cooler visually in the gameplay. I'm going to use Presence of Virtue. It's something I reckon was just 1 point to begin with, but the Heaven is something I would like to put at maximum because it gives flat health. And Rebuke is something giving a bit more stats of defensive stats. And Ascension and Clarity of Purpose is something I reckon only worth 1 point. I'm putting 6 points into Resilience because it's something would activate when a health drops below 66%, and giving some more defensive statistics. And I will put Shattering Smash into maximum because it gives flat physical and internal trauma damage as well, which is gonna be suited to the primary damage output of this build. And the Judgment is something I'm very interested in. This is something a range attack with pure physical and internal trauma damage. So I'm not gonna use the Heart of West because I'm not gonna use the fire damage in this build. And okay, so that's all for the Oathkeeper. So let's move on to the soldier trait. I'm gonna use the Overguard as a shield bonus. But 8 out of 12 is something I just put there for now because I'm sure there will be items that will boost the skill as well. So with military conditioning, I do recommend to keep this as overcap, because it's gonna be giving a huge amount of hit points. With shield training and veterancy, I reckon it's only worth 1 point each. Decorated the soldier, so I put this to maximum because the internal trauma bonus and the physical damage bonus, and also plus giving elemental and slow resistance as well. Counter Strike, something I would thinking was 1 point just to activate this skill because it's there. With Zohan's technique, it something gives a range attack, and it also gives flat internal trauma damage. And Field Command is something really good skill. It's something gives pure offensive ability and defensive abilities, so which will result the insane increase in DPS. With the exclusive skill of Orion's Rage, I couldn't decide if I choose this one or should have the Divine Mandate. And I do think this one, well, because both will give flat internal trauma damage and the other stats that will boost the physical damage and the internal trauma damage as well. But this one, I reckon is probably goes better with the Demolition trait. So I choose the Orion's Rage at the end because it gives flight internal trauma damage plus the offensive ability as well. Okay, so let's move on to the devotion tree. So because this build, the purpose of this build is something gonna be like really tanky plus lots of armor. Gonna use the shield and something like my aiming is to having 20k plus hit points, and so I choose the Tree of Life because the healing rings give the insane amount of health restore. It's gonna increase the chance to survive in the late game, and plus like the Obelisk of Mayhem. The increased armor by 10% applies to all pieces of armors, so not just one, and the same as like the 150 armor bonus. The stone form is gonna give more defensive abilities when it's activated. Move on to below. So I chose to use Autumn Boar as like something as bit defensive, but also like something like Counter-Strike damage to the enemy, so when it's activated, which is the start, would give some resistance and like the pure defense as well. And this one of the Wizard Herald of Korak is something, I believe this one is new, which is like, I reckon this devotion would suits really well, would goes really well with this build, because like it's not only giving multiple different resistance, and it's also like the skill it gives, it goes really well with the damage. So I attach this to a Restless Fever. Yeah, so that's all for this build. And along the line, so like there are many other opportunities to go with this build, but like this is just the idea of like what I think would gonna be tanky, gonna be like easy to survive in the late game. So yeah, so just some ideas of this build. And so in the following videos I will talk more builds and class combinations based on the Oathkeeper, which is something I'm really excited about. Like I believe the design of this class is to make it suit like every other class as well. So for example, like the conversions is primarily I would assume like this something would go along with like the Alchemist and a Nightblade tray, but I'll test it out in the future. So now I'm gonna show you guys some gameplay. I'm gonna kill the Warden. Okay, so that's all for today. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.